How do you describe your project or program in a way that it does not appear to duplicate existing programs in the community? How do you do this such that a grant reviewer doesn't say, hey, this looks like the same type of organization and program as this over here? Well, we're going to break this down into a few best practices and trying to look at specifically how to go through the process of not just articulating that your program or project is unique, but to actually make the organizational or operational changes to make it unique. I'm Benjamin Dean from grantgetting.com. I hope you enjoyed this video and others like it on the channel, which are aimed at helping you get more grants. Be sure to check out the link in the description with 7 additional tips on this topic, reducing redundancies in the community, so that you are prepared to answer these questions and better strengthen your grant applications. So high level, this is a problem in funding organizations. It is saying, okay, grant application season is here. Send us your grant applications. We're going to get 150 of them. We're only going to be able to fund 50 of them. So we've got to pick the best ones. And you know what? I'm looking at these 5 organizations all claiming to do the same thing. This is really hard to pick. There's 2 organizations that seem to stand out. We're going to fund those 2. We're not going to fund the other 3. Right? So this sort of thing happens all the time, even in an organization that doesn't have quotas. Let's say you've got a funder, they're more general, they'll fund organizations that are tackling economic issues, community development issues, educational issues, food, shelter, pets, what they'll fund anything in a particular geographic area. Well, they might not tell you in an RFA or on a website or even to your face that there's any sort of balancing of sectors, but there is. Here's the situation. Let's say it's an even simpler example, not 150 down to 50, but let's say there's 15 applications and they're only going to fund 5, right? They're going to fund a third of them. Well, if it so happens that 4 out of the 5 best applications, according to the rubric and the scores, were all related to pets, and the rest of the organizations were sort of a spattering of types of community-based organizations, then there's going to be a conversation in that grant review committee that says, yeah, we scored these ones the best, but is this the best message to send to the community, that we have $100,000 to spend and we're going to give 4 pet related organizations each $20,000? Does that send the right message? Right? Then they're going to cut it down. And if you're a pet assistance organization, you want to be part of those 2, maybe 3 that are going to get selected and not chopped off. Okay, these are some examples of why this matters. So, and this is the direction this is going. It's to say that I'm looking at a few organizations, and they all are telling me that they are doing the same thing in the same area. How do I know which organization is the one to fund? Okay, here is a few steps on how to do that. Number 1, before you do any grant writing, conduct a thorough community needs assessment, or at least a cursory one. Okay, a cursory one. One of the first things you need to do is to demonstrate that there is a specific gap in the services available in your community. That's number 1, the demonstrated need. It's the most basic question on any grant application. What is the problem that you are solving? Implicit, as it relates to this topic, could be stated that what is the problem that you are looking to solve where a solution does not already exist? Okay, this involves conducting a community needs assessment. Okay, funders want to know that your project, program, or initiative is addressing an unmet need and not replicating something that is already being done, whether they fund it or not. When you outline your findings in a grant application, you need to be specific. Mention the methods that you used: surveys, interviews, data collection, third-party research, um, focus groups would be another one, and highlight the key statistics that show why your project is needed or highlight that the gap is there. This sets the foundation for a grant application. The needs assessment is the tool that you need to create that section, that need identification section, or the demonstrated needs section, or what does the community need. You need to have that tool. Now, in many communities, these assessments have already been done recently enough that you may be able to cherry pick some of that information. But without that strong foundation, your whole application falls apart, and you don't have that USP, that unique selling proposition, that thing that will allow you to say, this is why we're different. You will want that in an application. There will sometimes be questions in the application that says, how is your program unique? If you have not demonstrated the unique and specific unmet need, your answer to that following question, how are you unique, is probably going to suck, because it's going to point out some feature or some technical thing that doesn't have anything to do with the unmet need and just has like some correctness to it relative to your competition, okay, or relative to others in the community. So the community needs assessment, or the research that you're doing that says, here are all the services that are available for this population, and here are the services that are not available for this population. These are the gaps in the community. This is the gap. Here's how many people demonstrated to us through a survey that they would like to have this service. Here's another organization that says, we're not going to provide this service anytime soon. Here we go. Here it is, right here in this community. You are proving that you are not duplicating services, but instead filling a gap. That's number one. That's probably most important. Okay. Number two, then, you want to highlight your project's unique approach or unique aspect of its activity that will allow you to meet that unmet need. While other programs may address similar goals, your project can stand out by showcasing a unique approach. Perhaps you're using an innovative method, working with a particular demographic, an underserved community that's usually most popular, or you're implementing a new technology which increases scope, increases scale, increases effectiveness or efficiency. Whatever it is, you need to highlight what makes your project, program, or initiative different, and you need to reference the unmet community need. If multiple organizations, for example, in a community, focus on something like job training, but you offer a specialized training for individuals with disabilities, that's a unique angle. You'll want to quantify that market size. You'll want to have some interviews or focus groups done with individuals with disabilities or with other organizations that service individuals with disabilities. You want to collect some of that information, which doesn't take very long, so that you can clearly articulate from your point of view, from the client's point of view, and from a peer organization's point of view, what sets this approach apart from others in the exact same space. You're doing this in a way that doesn't put anyone else down. This is one of the things, common errors that I see in answering project uniqueness questions, is there's a tendency to want to name other organizations and tell me, the grantor, what's wrong with this other organization. Yuck. Don't do that. If you're building the foundation on an unmet need, you don't need to mention any other organization's name other than your own. Okay? Bringing down any other organization will never, ever bring you up. This goes for grant applications, this goes for individual conversations. Just don't do it. It creates this negative energy around people and relationships, and you're just shooting yourself in the foot, honestly, is what you're doing. Okay, so people do it because it's the easy thing to do. We're better than that organization. We're way better. They do all this stuff and look at all these problems that they have. Our organization doesn't have those problems. So we're better because we have less problems, right? It's telling a grantor, pick us because we're less bad. That is not a reason to fund an organization. A reason to fund an organization is because they're doing something meaningfully important, meaningfully different, meaningfully unique in a way that's going to make big impact in the community. That's number two. Number three, demonstrate collaboration. So we're sort of ramping up here. One of the best ways to show that your project does not duplicate existing services is to collaborate with one of those organizations that one might perceive you to be duplicate of. Okay? That squashes it. All right? So it might be the case that you are providing pet services in a particular geographic area, and you've got a Venn diagram on a map of your service area and another organization service area, and you've got a little overlap. Okay. Within that overlap, there pretty much is duplication. Okay. Let's say there's a way to put a collaborative project together where you're going to share information to each other to help parse that situation out. It's a very simple grant that you could write to fund the administration of reducing redundancies and increasing efficiencies of two organizations together versus you're both going in saying, we service this area. And oh, by the way, there's a little overlap. Don't look at that. But we're basically doing the same thing. We're coming into communities and we're looking at how do we take the stray animals and get them into homes? How do we get them spayed and neutered? How do we get pet food sort of acquired for the community and distributed? All these things that we do, care for animals, and it sounds similar, right? If you come together, you're going to eliminate any of that and you're going to stand out. Okay. So demonstrating collaboration can happen with a joint proposal. And that's sort of what I'm alluding to there. But if we step back and we say it's not about the joint proposal as much as it is a joint effort in a particular area, funders will want to see this. It could be the case that in this example, there's two organizations that focus on pet services in a particular geographic area, but you're really going after it with grants. And you know you're going to be applying for grants that this other organization's just not going to be applying for because you're a grant getter. You're watching these videos, you're streamlining things, you're going through the grant getting course, you're doing all these things to go and get more grant applications out there. That there's not going to be this competitive aspect. So if you put together a project that does this sort of administrative overlapping communication thing, and it might only take your staff like 40 hours of staff time over the course of a year to put something like this together and get it rolling, a new process, then you're going to be able to reference that, right? You're going to be able to, in the grant application, if there's a question about how is your organization unique, you can reference a program, a process that you have already implemented, which works with another organization that would be a competitor organization. Anytime in your operations, you can change some other organization being a competitor to a collaborator, it will be to your benefit in grant writing somehow. Guaranteed 100% of the time without exception. Okay, you can do that. You can show how your project complements and enhances what others are doing, whether you're partnering on resources, sharing data, or building off existing efforts. That type of collaboration demonstrates that the project that you're applying for funding for is integrated into the ecosystem and it adds value without duplication. Doing this also gives you some additional content and things to point to in your sustainability section and in terms of like the strength of the organization. Anytime you're working with other groups, you are going to be able to articulate that you have a stronger application than if you were to do it yourself. Okay, these are 3 tips that will ensure that your project stands out and gets you out of that icky conversation around duplication of services. Check out the free download in the description for additional tips on this topic. Also, look at the comments section. I've pinned a comment down there that if you have any issues you're facing with this uniqueness or this duplication question, pop it in there. Give me a specific question. I'd love to answer it down there. Thank you for jumping into this video, and I will see you in the next one.